Saudi Arabia just ditched the US dollar. I've been warning you guys about BRICS currency. BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These countries have come together to create a new currency that will be backed by gold and other precious materials and minerals. This is a significant thing. The US dollar serves as the reserve currency of the world. So basically, the US can print as many of these dollars as it wants to. But if other countries want to purchase goods or services from another country, they actually have to pay in US dollars. But to get US dollars, they have to provide real value. So they have to trade oil, or they have to trade materials, something of value to actually get access to the US dollar that can then be used to pay for whatever it is that they want, including debt. So this is how bad things are right now. And these countries have come together to create this new currency. And numerous other countries are signing on to support this. The largest being Saudi Arabia. Turkey has already signed on to support BRICS, but Saudi Arabia is now the biggest one. So they're actually getting rid of the Petro Dollar. They are no longer going to be using the US dollar as the reserve currency for oil. So that's not going to be the currency that they use when accepting payments for oil anymore. There are many of you on the channel who are like, oh, I don't care. The US dollar isn't going anywhere. This is madness. I don't know. Something is wrong with a lot of you. No matter how bad it gets, you're like, America is not going to go down. Nothing's going to happen. Everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, you guys are insane. If people want to purchase their items from China, okay, if they want to buy their goods from China, they're going to need, this is the suppliers. If Apple wants to pay for their iPhones, they're going to need to use a BRICS currency to do this. It's not just the largest supplier. It's not just the largest product manufacturers. It's even small companies, small people like myself who may design a product and want to sell my product on Amazon. Guess what? That comes from China. How am I going to pay them? They'll say, well, yeah, we're not going to accept US dollars. We accept BRICS currencies. That's what the Chinese government has required now. So if you want to settle this, you're going to have to convert your US dollars over to BRICS. And if you want BRICS, it's going to cost you more because this currency is going to sell for a premium. Why is it going to sell for a premium? Simple. Because it's backed by precious earth minerals. It's backed by gold, meaning you cannot just make more of it out of thin air unless it's represented by real and actual value that has to be validated somehow. This is a massive implication for all of us. By the way, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure to hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get new videos early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. Yeah, so this is insane what's happening. And some of you are, again, you're in complete denial. But you're going to see, mess around, find out, mess around, find out. We have a video from Andre Geek. He actually has 2.34 million subscribers on YouTube, and he talks about different things that are happening, including finance. Let's go ahead and check out his video, and I'm going to link you to his channel description in the description of the video so you can check him out. But this is insane, this implication, because he basically goes into the situation with Saudi Arabia, something no one really thought would happen this soon.
I think we'd be in phase 3 so early, but here we are. Just this Sunday, one of the biggest economic deals of the century just came to an end. The long-standing petrodollar agreement between Saudi Arabia and the US just expired on June 9th, 2024. Now this system, which has been in place for 75 years, marks a huge shift in global economics. So in today's video, I want to help explain exactly what's happening, why it's happening, and how this will affect us and our future generations. So with that said, let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andre Jick. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for another boring macroeconomics video, phase 2. So initiate the storytelling and dramatic music. So when most people think about global trade, they're probably thinking about commodities. And when they think about commodities, they're mostly thinking of things like corn or wheat. But there's one commodity to rule them all, and that is oil. Now, at the center of this intricate web of global finance, the petrodollar system is at its core. That's why when most people around the world think about what money actually is, they're probably thinking about the US dollar. But it wasn't always like that though. Between 1720 to 1815, if you asked someone to name a currency, they would have probably said the French livre, because it was France that held the reserve status from 1720 to 1815. But then, if you asked someone to name a currency between 1815 to 1920, you would have probably heard the British pound. Now, after World War II, everything changed with the creation of the Bretton Woods Agreement, because after that point, most people would have probably said the US dollar. Now this happened because the US was pretty much the only standing superpower after World War II. But this system wasn't about one thing. It wasn't about commodities. It was about cementing the dollar's role as the world reserve currency. Because being the one money to rule them all gave that country access to two specific superpowers. And one of them was economic stability. Stability allows for things like international trade to happen. If you want countries to trade, you need a common value and a common money that everyone agrees to. And the second superpower is the country whose currency becomes the one benefits from rising asset prices, including treasury bonds, which is seen as safe. So countries park their wealth into money that is seen as stable to preserve their wealth against inflation and all the other currencies. That's why countries like Japan, China, and the UK are some of the biggest holders of US assets through foreign exchange reserves, roughly $7 to $8 trillion worth. But then in secret, another superpower was made for the US dollar, and that was the ability to control the world's energy.
The standard of living of all Americans can be traced back to here, the vast oil-rich deserts of Saudi Arabia.
Our house is your house.
There's an Arab saying, the sands are blowing. And I submit to you, King Fahd, that if the sands of time give us any hint of the future, it is that in the days ahead, the friendship between the Saudi Arabian and American people will be a strong and vital force in the world.
Now, after the dollar got off the gold standard, it became the super petrodollar, and it replaced gold by what some people like to call black gold, aka oil. Now, how this happened is one of the most interesting stories that has ever happened throughout history.
The petrodollar is actually a device invented by Kissinger and Nixon.
U.S. President Richard Nixon sent his Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger to Saudi Arabia for a secret meeting.
That meeting took place on a battleship called the USS Quincy, and very few records were kept of that meeting. But Roosevelt promised the King of Saudi Arabia weapons and protection in exchange for the United States to have the exclusive right to develop oil from Saudi Arabia using dollars. Meaning, if countries wanted to trade the most important commodity of all, oil, they needed to get their hands on dollars. And from that point on, oil would be priced in USD. And if a country tried to get their hands on oil without using dollars, that country historically needed more freedom in their lives. And it's this arrangement between the US and Saudi Arabia that helps the US with dominance over global trade and helping preserve the US dollar as the world's reserve currency for over 75 years now. But just this Sunday, the Prince of Saudi Arabia announced that he would not renew this contract. And this decision is part of a much bigger trend where countries are ditching dollars in international trade and oil transactions.
The dollar. Looks like they're dumping it.
The world's largest oil producer, Saudi Arabia, is reportedly asking to join BRICS.
As more and more developing nations, including some of the world's largest economies, decide to ditch the dollar in their bilateral trade, voices of concern and even despair are being heard in the US over the looming end of America's global financial dominance.
Now, it's so amazing because there are those of you watching my video, watching all of these videos, and no matter what I say, if you say the sky is green, the sky is green. It doesn't matter if it's blue. It doesn't matter if it's scientific. It doesn't matter what research is provided. You will continue to say the sky is green, even if the sky legitimately starts to fall. So it's amazing And it's annoying. I don't know why these guys, I do know why these people are here, because they have nowhere else to go. And it's like, it's a level of ignorance and arrogance. And these are the same people that will go either completely ballistic when everything goes to hell, and they'll start to go absolutely ape crap, or they'll sit back and laugh and drink a beer and say, oh, well, I guess everything is going to hell. They don't, it's insane. And it kind of blows my mind how insane some people are. Like, this is real stuff. The money, this is it. Guys, this is it. Everything is heading to BRICS right now. The loss of the petrodollar, our dollar is basically backed by goodwill, as whatever we believe in it. But on a larger level, the petrodollar, like, essentially oil was the only thing we had. Okay, that was the only thing that we actually had. It's like, if you wanted to buy oil, you needed the US dollar, but now goodbye oil. So not only not only does the petrodollar no longer exist, but on top of it, all of these other countries are banding together with BRICS. Saudi Arabia is banding together with BRICS to undo the to get rid of the US dollar. It will no longer be the reserve currency. If you want oil, you're going to have to pay in BRICS. If you want to obtain Chinese products, you're going to have to pay in BRICS. If you want to obtain Indian products, you're going to have to pay in BRICS. This is not a game. Guys, do you know what's happening over in Mexico right now? The Chinese are investing heavily in Mexico. Mexico is becoming an extremely wealthy country. The reason why is because of trade. So the U.S. is there's this agreement in place that makes it very easy to, basically bring things from the U.S. and things into Mexico. It's a trade agreement. So there are a bunch of stiff tariffs that are put on for China and so forth. Like, if they try to ship their EVs into the United States, electric vehicles, there's now a 100% EV tax on there, all right, to help competition. The thing is that you have to consider is that with Mexico, because of that trade agreement, it's actually now significantly cheaper for China to basically get their things into the U.S. without going past, without violating that, by being able to bypass that tariff. Otherwise, they're investing heavily in Mexico. They're beginning to build their products in Mexico. They're beginning to train the Mexicans, build factories in Mexico. Why I'm bringing this up is because Mexico, I'm not saying they will, but it's very possible Mexico could eventually, basically, begin switch over to BRICS. They honestly could switch to BRICS. Because, in other words, if the U.S. wants to do business in Mexico going forward, and they want to settle, they want to basically settle things, Mexico could say, well, we want BRICS currency. That has major implications for all of us. Okay, where if you want to do business in Mexico, you need BRICS currency. And considering what's happening, the big growth between China of Mexico as a result of Chinese investment, it's no joke. It's no joke. And for those of you that say you don't care, America will never lose its dominance. Guys, the money is increasingly worth less and less since 2019 to now. The value of, people are now making 30% less than they were in 2019 when adjusted for inflation. I know many of you don't care because you've basically given up on society. You've given up on the world. You've walked away and you're just watching everything burn. But to say that, oh, the U.S. is never going to collapse, you have to be insane. I've said before that society likely won't collapse, but groups of people in society will collapse. And the U.S. dollar, guys, it's been going downhill for a long time right now. All right. The U.S. cannot pay its debts. And the very sad thing, many of you don't understand, is that they have to keep on running up inflation so that the value of the dollar declines, and thereby the value of debt also declines, so they can then pay their debts. But for them to make that feasible, they're going to need to make the dollar worth a lot less. In other words, inflation is going to have to go a lot higher. You will basically own nothing and be happy, as they like to say. But it's just not going to be like that. You guys, also with artificial intelligence ramping up in the coming years, I told you a lot of those luxurious 9-to-5 jobs were going to be gone very soon. I said this years ago, and as a result, and then the events of 2020 happened, and it slowed things down because things were everything slowed down around the world, but we're picking up where we left off. And they're saying 2 to 3 years. They're saying about 3 years right now. In 3 years, AI should displace around 30 to 40% of jobs. And most of those jobs that will be displaced are going to be women, jobs predominantly done by women. All right? A lot of women are going to lose their jobs in the coming years, and it's going to be rapid. Apple just unveiled Apple Intelligence, which is basically their artificial intelligence, their generative AI integrate and other AI integrations into their operating systems. And it's a big leap. It's a major leap. And this has big implications because this thing is like generating images and doing all sorts of things in just moments. Okay. And the fact that this technology will be available on your iPad, on your Mac OS, on your on iOS, on your iPhone right then and there. This eliminates a lot of things. Being able to create art instantly and just toss it on, being able to generate entire copyright an entire thing for a website, just like it's crazy stuff. It's madness. Guys, I've already told you, for example, I love anime. Guess what's going to happen, guys? I've played with this technology already. And I can take my voice and I can have generative AI analyze my voice and then generate audio scripts that use my voice. So basically I could go to ChatGPT and say, okay, take the script for this video, learn my voice, my patterns and everything else, and then create an entire script based around, how I would say things, on this subject, so I'll get an article and I'll say, well, and this thing needs to be like, it should be the video is going to be like, let's say, it needs to be 15 minutes long. So it needs to have this many words. So you're going to help me do an estimate of how long the script needs to be to do all of that. And it'll generate a script for me and I'll feed the script into the generative AI software. And that's already analyzed my voice. And it will turn that into audio. And then I'll just turn around, piece that audio with my gameplay video, or using other AI technology that will allow me to just generate words and visuals and everything. I do all of this stuff already. You've seen me do it. And it'll just create everything. And this is the world that we're heading to. But even more than that, the reason why I bring up the audio factor is because I like anime. And we have voice actors right now in anime. Guys, they're going to be taking voices for voice actors. They're going to analyze these voices using AI. And there are videos that are going to be produced. They're basically going to have scripts, do the exact same thing I just mentioned, where a lot of voice actor roles will be eliminated because they're going to license voices. They're going to license a person's voice or create an entirely new voice, training it off old voices. That's one of the things that's okay, yeah, we don't even want to pay these people. So we'll just create a similar voice that's good enough. And the voices will basically be generated, will be used to generate the voices and the voice acting for cartoons, for anime, and for things like that, for even animated movies, whatever. And that's how it's going to be worked, even for video games. All right, so they're going to wipe out voice actors. They're going to wipe out voice actors, and especially with CG and a lot of these things happening right now, eventually they're going to try to push out as many movies as they can that are just basically using CG. Computer generation, because it's cheaper to do that than to actually have to pay all of these different people to do these jobs. So they can produce a movie for $2 billion and then try to make a couple $100 million or $1 billion off it. Look at Spider-Man Enter into the Spider-Verse. That's all art. Now imagine eliminating the voice actors, so basically you eliminate the voice actors and now you have sound engineers that basically just use AI to generate these voices and tweak these voices as they decide to. It's crazy. It's a crazy reality that we are absolutely headed for in the next couple of years. I will tell you guys right now, many of you don't want to listen. You're too busy listening to podcasts where they have all of these girls sitting on a panel and talking, these women who know nothing about life, like literally many of them didn't even get a college degree, barely finished high school. They call themselves content creators. They're on OnlyFools and they're trying to lecture grown men. And you're sitting around as a grown man listening to the fools just run their mouths when we are literally headed for hellish times, and then you sit there and you think that like everything will be okay because you want it to be okay. Like, that's why I say, like, there's some Gen Xers, of course. Not all Gen Xers are perfect. There's some weaklings among Gen X. There's some people out there that are trying to play it easy, like, oh, everything will be okay. We need to be better with Gen Z. Guys, these people are going to be stealing left and right, committing every horrible act in the book. All right. And the boomers can't serve. The boomers, as these people are stingy. They're stingy, and the way the boomers operate is by stealing from others, by taking from others. Okay, this is how they operate. They'll try to use their kids. They'll try to use society to spend everyone else's money other than their own. This is how these people operate. But this time, it's not going to be as easy. Okay, they're heading into old age, and they can't keep going. A lot of boomers are now headed towards 80 years old. Where do you think they're going to be 5 years from now? Not even 10. 5 years from now, where do you think a lot of the boomers are going to be? In 2029, the last of the boomers will turn 65. 2029. That means that the oldest of the boomers will be 83 years old. 83. And in just 3.5 years from now, in 2028, so many boomers will have passed away that Gen X, which was a relatively small generation, will then overtake the boomers. That is the projection, unless the boomers somehow make a great deal with Satan or Ozempic, increases their lifespan significantly, because it cuts down on heart disease. Then a lot of the boomers are not going to be here. A lot of them are going to be gone in just 3 years, 3.5 years. So many of them are going to pass away over the next 3.5 years that Gen X is going to overtake them. That's a massive implication. Now consider this. When Gen X overtakes the boomers, at that point, Gen X are the ones with the major skill sets. Gen X are the ones who actually know how to run society. I'm just being honest with you. Millennials are stressed and burnt out. Okay, millennials can barely keep going at this moment. Are there some who want power? Yeah. And while Gen X is the first walk-away generation, they're the first generation to walk away, Gen X aren't sissies. And they're not just going to let the millennials do what they want to. And they're sure as hell are not going to let Gen Z do what they want to. Okay? It's the honest to goodness truth. And when you look at voting, Gen X will vote. If Gen X wants to, Gen X will vote. Gen X will vote. This is the thing. It's going to be a major implication. Are the boomers going to continue fighting and holding on for power as dearly as they can? Absolutely, but no one's coming to rescue them. They're going to say, it's a disgrace. It's a national disgrace. What's happening to our seniors as they're ending up homeless while they still hold most of the wealth in Western society. It's ridiculous in the United States. So the richest group of people in the U.S. are going to be crying and hollering because many of them did not prepare for retirement. And as inflation continues to skyrocket and the value of the money that they have continues to deteriorate, and they're not young anymore, so they can't work those crazy hours. It's going to be hard. And of course, while Gen Z is not, they're being pushed out of the workforce, they're just going to be replaced by generative AI. They're going to be replaced by generative AI, and employers are there's going to be larger delays. That's it. They're not going to hire Gen Zers. It's just going to take you longer to get things done. If they need a person to actually do these jobs, then they're going to rely on millennials and Gen X. And basically, if they don't have enough employees, you're going to have to wait longer to get help. That's it. There's outside of AI, there's no help on the way. You know, there's no help on the way. Even when it comes to, you know, for example, using immigration to bring new people into the U.S. to help offset the load, it's not enough. You need people with these skill sets in the U.S. A lot of the people who will come here, they're going to take jobs that are going to be on the lower end. They're not going to take jobs as computer scientists and software engineers and architects and stuff. They're not taking those jobs. Okay, working in insurance and doing insurance adjustments. These are jobs that require special skill sets. And not only that, you also have to be able to pass U.S. clearance. You have to be able to pass a massive background check. Like you have to be a U.S. citizen. Even to get jobs at companies like Tesla, you have to be a U.S. citizen a lot of the time. Elon Musk talked about this because of trade secrets and all kinds of stuff. When I was working insurance, I had to pass a massive background check, FBI background check. Like, you have to be squeaky clean to be able to work in these jobs. Like, I mean, like they look at your credit and it's basically a hit or miss. Because if your credit's not wonderful, it's a hit or miss. Like, you better be good in every other area. Like, I'm talking about never been arrested. Oh, you better not have a lot of speeding tickets, literally stuff like that. That's the absolute reality that we live in. And there's just not going to be enough people to do these jobs. Let's go ahead and jump right back into the video.
But the question is, what does all of this actually mean? Ask yourself this question. What is the US famous for exporting that the world is buying? I'll give you some examples. China is famous for being the world's factory. It makes and exports everything. Germany is known for its engineering and high-quality manufacturing. BMW, Porsche, Mercedes. Japan is a major exporter of electronics, cars, Toyota, Honda, and the best anime in the world. South Korea, famous for semiconductors, smartphones, Samsung, Hyundai, Kia, and some of the best skincare products in the world. Saudi Arabia, famous for its oil. It's one of the biggest exporters of crude oil in the world. Russia, famous for its natural resources, its gas, its oil, its coal, its other minerals. Brazil is known for its agriculture, one of the biggest exporters of soybeans, coffee, sugar, and beef. India is a major exporter of software services, tech, and pharmaceuticals. Australia is also rich in natural resources. It's the leading exporter of iron ore, coal, natural gas, and black opal. Canada is also a huge exporter of natural resources, including timber, minerals, and some of the nicest people I've ever met. France is arguably the biggest exporter of luxury goods and fashion in the entire world. Italy is also known for fashion and luxury. Ferrari, Lamborghini, wine, pasta. The Netherlands, famous for happiness, flowers, dairy products, vegetables, height. Switzerland, famous for financial services. It's the world's biggest bank. Pharmaceuticals, Rolex. The United States, famous for the Kardashians. Hollywood. Now, there's actually a lot of things the US produces that the world consumes, including culture, but also tech. We've made the biggest companies in the world. We export the biggest military in the world, but arguably the biggest export that the United States has by far are US dollars. We aid a lot of countries with a lot of money. By design, we are the world's biggest money exports. So the question is, how does being able to export dollars help the US economy? And the answer is, it helps in every single way imaginable. Because having the petrodollar system has created a demand around the world for other countries to buy our dollars and our treasury bonds. Because that's how the US fuels its growth, by issuing this debt, these treasury bonds that other people buy. It's also created a stable economy, lower interest rates, and liquidity in financial markets. And this has been hugely beneficial for the US stock market through higher stock prices and investment flows. Without the ability to export dollars, that would mean bad things. Let me show you an analogy using a balloon, because this is the US economy in its normal state. And whenever there's a problem, we can just pump the balloon full of money to solve the problem, which also creates inflation, and it looks like this. Now, if I pump this balloon with enough inflation, eventually those rising prices would cause the economy to break because consumers wouldn't be able to afford anything. So eventually, with enough air, with enough money, the economy would break. Now, lucky for us, we have an exit valve right here. That means we can release the pressure and the dollars to the rest of the world, and the world would actually absorb it because it also needs those dollars to buy its energy. But what happens when you have a balloon that keeps on expanding and doesn't have an exit valve?
And I just want to show you guys this. He mentioned, you know, the other countries buy U.S. dollars and bonds, right? Well, check this out. China's historic dump of 50 just happened. China's historic dump of 53 billion U.S. treasuries is unprecedented blow to the U.S. economy. Tensions between China and the United States have been escalating for years, fueled by economic competition, geopolitical disputes, and a series of diplomatic confrontations. Recently, China has taken a significant step that further complicates the fraught relationship by cutting ties with a record number of U.S. treasuries and agency debt bonds worth $53.3 billion. This historic move, this is just in one huge sell-off. The largest sell-off initiated by China coincides with a broader trend of BRICS countries offloading BRICS yet again, offloading U.S. treasuries since 2022. Why did China take this drastic step? And what does it mean for the United States and global economy? China's motivation behind the sell-off, China's decision to sell off U.S. treasuries is multifaceted, involving economic, strategic, and political considerations. One of the primary motivations is the desire to reduce reliance on U.S. assets in China's foreign reserves. This aligns with a broader trend among BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, to diversify their reserves and reduce dependence on the U.S. dollar, U.S. Treasury. So what does this mean here? China, along with other BRICS nations, has become steadily reducing its holdings of U.S. treasuries over the past 2 years. This move is seen as an attempt to diversify its reserves and minimize exposures to the risk associated with the U.S. economy, particularly given its high level of debt. As of 2023, the U.S. national debt stood at a staggering $34.4 trillion, a figure that has raised alarms among international investors and policy makers. Strategic realignment. Strategically, China's sell-off can be interpreted as a response to the ongoing geopolitical tensions with the United States. The trade war initiated during the Trump administration, coupled with the continued pressure from the Biden administration, has pushed China to reassess its economic strategies by offloading U.S. treasuries and increasing its gold reserves. China aims to shield its economy from potential U.S. economic sanctions and maintain financial stability. Gold reserves building. In recent years, BRIC countries, particularly China, have been accumulating massive amounts of gold. China emerged as the largest buyer of gold in 2022, 2023, and 2024, purchasing several tons of gold valued at an estimated $550 billion. This move is seen as a hedging against the volatility of the U.S. dollar and a way to ensure economic stability amid global uncertainties. European influence. The trend of selling U.S. debt is not limited to BRICS nations. U.S. countries such as Belgium have also followed suit. During the same period, Belgium dumped $22 billion in U.S. treasuries. Again, many of you will say you don't care. This indicates a broader global shift towards reducing dependence on U.S. financial instruments. Basically, other countries they don't trust the U.S. dollar anymore. They think it's about to collapse. The sell-off of U.S. treasuries by China and other nations has significant implications for the United States. It signals a lack of confidence in the U.S. economy and its ability to manage its burgeoning debt. This move could lead to higher borrowing costs for the U.S. government and increased volatility in the bond market. U.S. Treasuries. The reduction in demand for U.S. Treasuries could result in higher interest rates as the U.S. government seeks to attract buyers for its debt. Higher interest rates could in turn slow economic growth and increase the cost of borrowing for businesses and consumers. This could have a ripple effect throughout the U.S. economy, potentially leading to slower job growth and reduced consumer spending. Politically, the sell-off underscores the strained relationship between the U.S. and China. Despite efforts by Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping to address deteriorating relations, the underlying economic and strategic tensions remain unsolved. The upcoming U.S. presidential election adds another layer of uncertainty, with the potential for further escalations in the U.S.-China trade war if former President Donald Trump were to return to office. The role of U.S. debt and sanctions. One of the critical factors driving the sell-off is the U.S.'s uncontrolled debt and the potential for sanctions. The massive U.S. debt has become a significant concern for international investors, including BRICS nations, which do not want their economies to rely heavily on the dollar. Instead, they are shifting towards local currencies and other assets like gold. Sanctions risk are at the forefront of many countries' minds. The Biden administration task force is actively investigating violations involving exports of technology to China. Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Export Enforcement, Matthew S. Axelrod, has stated that these efforts will likely result in significant export enforcement actions in 2024. Such measures could further strain U.S.-China relations and push China to continue reducing its exposure to U.S. assets. Okay, and then there's the broader BRIC strategy. China is not alone in this endeavor. Okay, massive implication here, guys. Other BRICS countries have also been selling U.S. treasuries and increasing their gold holdings. This collective strategy signifies a shift towards greater economic independence and a move away from the dominance of the U.S. dollar in global trade and finance. BRICS nations are pushing to rely more on local currencies in their international trade. This is a shift. This shift is part of a broader strategy to reduce dependence on the U.S. dollar and build a more resilient economic system that is less vulnerable to external shocks. Gold as a safe haven. The accumulation of gold by China and other BRICS countries underscore the importance of gold as a safe haven asset. Gold provides a hedge against currency fluctuations and economic instability, making it an attractive option for countries looking to safeguard their reserves. China's historic sell-off of U.S. treasuries is a significant development with far-reaching implications for the global economy. Motivated by a desire to diversify its reserves and reduce reliance on the U.S. dollar, China's actions reflect broader trends among BRICS nations and other countries seeking greater economic independence. The move also underscores the strained relationship between the U.S. and China, exacerbated by geopolitical tensions and the looming U.S. presidential election. As China and other countries continue to offload U.S. treasuries and accumulate gold, the global economic landscape is undergoing a profound transformation. This shift towards local currencies and alternative assets highlights the need for the U.S. to address its growing debt and reassess its economic policies to maintain stability in an increasingly interconnected world. Guys, the only way the U.S. can balance debt, can pay their debt, because they're not even pay, they can no longer pay the interest on their debt. All right. The only way that they can afford to pay the interest on their debt, forget about paying off their debt. They're going to keep on acquiring more and more debt. So we're not even talking about paying down the debt right now. They're just so they can afford to pay the interest on their debt. They need to keep on kicking up inflation more and more. Like, inflation has to go up significantly more just so they can pay the interest on their debt. It's that insane right now. Just the interest. And the baby boomers are like, spend. Guess what? Social Security is almost completely out of funds. They're saying that, oh, well, Social Security will hopefully, based on the trends, like we actually did well this year in terms of income. So it should be 20, they were predicting 2032. Now they're saying 2035. Before it was 2034. Guys, don't trust any of these people, because it's based on how well the economy is doing at this moment. Keep in mind that come 2029, last of the baby boomers turned 65. We have no idea how many of the baby boomers are going to retire at that age, at that point. So as so many baby boomers turn around and retire, and they will be eligible for full Social Security shortly after that. That's massive. That's absolutely massive. There's a lot of baby boomers who are gonna take it early, and there are a lot of baby boomers by that point. Like they're gonna be able to qualify within like 2 years, 2031. Boom, they can qualify for full Social Security. I mean, guys, what do you think? Like, we're literally talking 6-7 years from now. And this is all of the baby boomers, every single one of them. So there's not a lot left. Most of the baby boomer generation in just a few years will be able to qualify for full Social Security. We're just talking about like a handful of people. Like, we don't have to wait for that handful of people and then everyone retires. Like, they can start retiring like in the next couple of years if they want to. Many of them can retire now, and they would completely deplete the Social Security fund. And there's no way in hell that they're going to raise the age of Social Security on the baby boomers, because they would basically vote anyone out of office if they tried it. Oh, you're going to tell me that at 60 I can't collect full Social Security anymore at 67? The boomers will go absolutely ballistic. They're going to raise Social Security ages on Gen X, and then forget about it for the millennials and all the rest of them. There will never be Social Security for those people. The boomers are basically just trying to steal whatever they can and have other generations pay for it until they pass away, and they will leave us with nothing. That's the baby boomers for you. It's an extraordinary level of selfishness. And when you look at this, you realize that there was never anything to begin with in the first place. It's like, it's cannibalistic. It's cannibalistic what we are witnessing. 100% cannibalistic. It's sickening, beyond sickening.
Eventually, that balloon would pop. Now that's just an analogy, but what does it really mean? Believe it or not, we've seen what it means because it's happened to other countries.
Greece is on the verge of default tonight, hours from what many believe is a near certainty.
Scenes like this are playing out across the country.
The UN says food prices tripled last year and estimates 4 in 5 Syrians now live below the poverty line.
Since 2019, the Lebanese pound has lost more than 90% of its value.
Basic commodity prices have almost doubled.
Argentina's annual inflation reached more than 100% in February. This is the first time since 1991 it's been in triple digits.
So his costs go up whenever the value of the South Sudanese pound falls against the US dollar.
Higher inflation means higher interest rates to fight inflation.
Guys, how many people do you think are really going to hold on to the US dollar? Like, as things are going downhill like this, how many people do you really think are going to hold on to just US dollars? Like, you would have to be out of your minds. There's some people who are out of their minds listening to my videos, all right? You would have to be a complete fool if you're not diversifying right now. Like I said, I have my crypto courses coming for y'all, and I'm also going to be, providing, giving you everything you need to learn so that you'll know exactly which cryptocurrencies you should be loading up on and doing analysis. Also be doing consultations for you guys to help you guys build up your portfolios, figure out what your goals are, provide you with everything you need so that you can lay yourself and protect your assets. Because this is a joke. You have to be a complete idiot to keep all of your money in the US dollar right now. You have to be a complete fool. A 100% fool to basically say, I'm just going to leave it all in the bank. Because, the money today, as a result of inflation, our money is now worth 30% less than it was in 2019. 30% less. And there's so many of you that act like you don't give a damn, but that you're like the first ones to go absolutely ballistic. Like, I tell you, a fool is a fool is a fool is a fool.
Interest rates also means it's more expensive to borrow money, which means expensive mortgages and rents, more expensive auto loans, higher student loans, and higher interest rates on credit cards. Higher interest rates also puts a strain on the banking system, which we've seen with the smaller bank failures. It puts a strain on the national deficit, which we've also seen, and of course the federal budget, which also means in order to fight that, we might have to raise our taxes to pay for those higher interest payments. Another problem would be the value of the dollar itself would be affected because it would no longer be needed by other countries. That makes traveling overseas a lot more expensive. It makes buying things that are made in other countries more expensive. And it becomes harder to retire because those retirement accounts, those IRAs and 401ks, would be negatively affected. Remember, less foreign dollars buying assets equals slower growth. Question is, why is Saudi Arabia doing this? Some people blame US leadership and Congress for creating the situation. Some people say they're doing this because they can, because it makes sense for a country to trade how they choose and to sell their assets in the currency they want. But it's also because of their commitment to the BRICS alliance. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Countries like China and Russia, for example, have been reducing their dependence on the dollar for a while now, which is why China recently dumped a bunch of US Treasury bonds. And it's also why the dollar as a reserve currency has reached a 14-year low. So how can the US fight this then? Now, short of declaring freedom on a country, the US can also raise its federal fund rate, or the interest rate, to attract more money to be parked here. And we have. But the US can only raise the interest rate so far before it starts to affect the US economy, consumers, small banks, and the ability for us to borrow money. So unfortunately, there's really not a lot the US can do, which doesn't sound like good news. But I also want to show you data that argues the effects of all of this. I did this in another video, but if you didn't watch that video, I think it's important to remind yourself just how powerful the US's #1 export still actually is. Because the world holds roughly 59% of its foreign exchange reserves in dollars, in comparison to only 20% of that in euros and only 3% for the Chinese renminbi. And the dollar is used in 88% of foreign exchange transactions according to the Atlantic Council. And for the Chinese yuan, which a lot of people reference as a competitor to the dollar, just had 73 central banks abandon it in favor for buying more gold and US dollars. In fact, in a survey of global money managers, when they were asked what they wanted to do over the next 1 to 2 years with their currency, here's what they said. 18% of them said they would be adding to their US dollar, which is 3 times higher than what it was last year. And the dollar is also backed by the world's biggest, most advanced, and powerful militaries in the entire world. Now, how long that's going to last is not something I can answer. All I've shown you is just the data and the facts about what's really going on today. So I don't know, none of this was my opinion, but if you made it this far, here's what I personally think. I didn't even know this agreement was coming to an end until a couple days ago when someone left a comment on my video, so thank you for bringing it to my attention. I do read and respond to a lot of your comments, but I'll reiterate what I said in that video. The world has been becoming less dependent on the dollar for a long, long time now, and it makes perfect sense why it would want that for itself to me. But it's been happening extremely slowly. And I can see in my lifetime how the dollar will continue to play less of a central role in global trade. But do I think it's going to be replaced by another currency? Not in my lifetime, even with this agreement coming to an end. Now, rather than just saving my money and worrying about the end of the world, about something that is completely outside of my control, I focus on what I can control, which is just investing into the stock market, into low-cost broad market index funds, and reinvesting all of my dividend income back into my dividend stocks. And as an insurance policy, I also like to buy some Bitcoin. Now, I don't think that Bitcoin will ever become a currency, but Bitcoin has what I like to call a lot of attack vectors for preserving and creating wealth. For example,
so, I mean, guys, they say Bitcoin is digital gold. He's saying that, he doesn't see the dollar completely collapsing in his lifetime. And while the dollar may not completely go away in our lifetime, guys, its reach and its hold can deteriorate, and it can create significant problems around the world. Like I said, if India says, this is what's happening right now. India says, well, if you want to do business in India, you need BRICS currency. You want to do business in China, you need BRICS currency, guys. This is a massive implication. So while countries will still look at the US dollar as a reserve currency, it's going to the amount of US dollars that these countries begin to hold is going to deteriorate because they don't have it fit. They have to provide value to buy to own these currencies. They have to provide value to own US to get access to US dollars. So they don't have it finished, you know, so they actually have to sell something. So they cannot hold infinite amounts of US dollars. Realistically, they're going to have to begin diversifying. Even US companies like Apple will start to have to begin diversifying in BRICS currency. They absolutely will. And this is going to cause the value of BRICS currency to skyrocket, because BRICS currency, they can't just print unlimited amounts of it. Is there the risk of currency manipulation? Absolutely. But compared to the US dollar, where they just print more and more of it, we will likely see a scenario where, you know, one brick, you know, the equivalent of $1, one brick, is potentially worth significantly more than $1 US. So like $1 US might be worth 35 cents or 50 cents to one brick currency, you know, $1 for brick currency. That's a massive implication, y'all. That's a massive implication. And as inflation continues to rise, imagine a point where it's like for every one brick, it's $2 US, $3 US, $4 US, and before you know it, it's basically Venezuela-style inflation. Look at what's happening in Western society, how inflation has caused everything, like the price of food, everything has gone insane. Or like we're seeing like 500% inflation on a lot of things. And again, I know many of you don't care because you've walked away, but this is the reality. Anyway, guys, don't forget I have another channel called Men Walking Away. If you're enjoying the content on this channel and you want even more of this content, consider checking out the Men Walking Away channel, where I release daily videos. There's a link to that channel in the description of the video, so go check it out, subscribe to the channel, enjoy the content. What do you guys think regarding everything we discussed here today? Saudi Arabia just ditched the US dollar, and we discussed how this is going to affect you. Do you agree that there's going to be major implications, and we are going to see the US dollar take some massive hits that is going to create huge shufflings in the rest of the world and extreme hardship for the rest of Western society, specifically in the United States? Let me know your thoughts. We'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you like the video, share the video, and just remember that all roads lead to MWA, Men Walking Away, and cheers.